What's up, Union Arena players? Today we're going to be bringing back, Meta Mondays. Well, it's Tuesday on my birthday, no less. So just say happy birthday down in the comments. You know the drill. But we got a lot to talk about, especially with Demon Slayer's first opening true weekend. So let's see all the fun, exciting decks we can talk about, shall we? So first off, we have Union Arena sets. If you guys don't know Riot Games by now, this is one of my bigger backers of the channel, and really I'm excited to talk about it. They have the 2K basically next weekend, so I can't wait to go over their big event. And then they have and a 1K with it in Canada. But with their support and everything like that, they announced that they are now fully loaded on their Demon Slayer product. So if you guys have been waiting for Riot Games to load up on their stuff, they have plenty of cards to go around. They use TCG Player. They have probably the biggest inventory right off the bat anytime a set. So I kind of like them for this reason and this reason alone. You guys get a lot of options to work with. And if, the site doesn't crash on me when I'm trying to use it, it's a fantastic site. They have great prices, great deals. I personally would use them if I were you. So let's see what we kind of can go for the meta breakdown though. So you guys come here every week to kind of look at where things are kind of going, right? Big events, anything like that kind of fuel into this. Big events kind of push decks up. So first off, we do have the English winning deck tier list here for this week. So taking a look, Code Geass definitely getting 10 wins here. Then followed by the Demon Slayer Tanjiro Nezuko deck is up to 8 wins, if I remember correctly, over the past week. And then also Blue Sukuna kind of just creeping in the background. So definitely our big three of this set so far, and I just think a lot of hype is behind the Tanjiro list because the ability to multi-attack is huge, and the ability to, instead of having to redraw pieces, your raids can get the Nezuko back that you might need to raid. So again, unless removal is strong enough to completely get it out of the game, which only 2 decks right now in the format that can kind of do that is the Radius Collapse and then the Purple Lightning, because they both remove them out of zones where the Tanjiro deck can't grab them. So in those matchups, that is their really more challenging aspect, because again, removing a Nezuko off the board just means she's coming back later, right? So being able to swap in and get characters like your raids that are very much impact boys, getting them back into the energy line and protecting them from removal spells leaves only just Nezuko as the target. So stuff like that means that decks like this that have a great aggression do well in formats, because we are an aggro based setup. Now we do have Kurapika ticking up, we do have Lancelot ticking up, we do have Bleach ticking up, and we do have the the other yellow Demon Slayer deck ticking up as well. But we do have, purple sneaking in. We did have a red list. I don't have the list exactly. I'm kind of sad I wasn't able to get that, but there was one top that I heard of. If there are other tops, let me know. But taking a look though, we did have purple hybrid for the Hunter x Hunter doing well as interesting. We got the normal one-ofs that we kind of just see as well, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So taking a look across the board, a lot of good events are happening. We have, none other than UA Plus community that is straight up hosting a win-a-box every single week, and eventually we should have that data constantly coming through this channel. So I'm excited for that to be a good community collab that is happening, and we will be shouting that channel off a lot more, and there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming from them in the future. But we also do have Rumble Ramas going off as well that happen free events. Eventually they will be hosting winner boxes as well, free ones. So at the end of the day, we're taking a look here and we got a lot of value to take in. So now, we do have the first place, none other than the Kento Namami lists. Yuji Itadori, Sukunas, the whole 9 yard. This deck with the Radio Collapse, Ratio Collapse is such a great deck in my opinion, and a lot of players enjoy decks like this, and again, they will adapt and play the deck how they want. And I think we have a great amount of value in the Blue Sukuna list that it does prove to always still come up in any format we kind of see. Now, we do have, if this thing would do its job, now we do have this one from the UA Community Plus Discord. They won with the Toshiro and Unohana. So this is a very classic one, but really the only interesting target that was added in here is the Soul Society. So when played, draw a card, but it's a double energy generator, so it's a very good sight, but it also is a card that gets added to your hand. So it has some triggers effects. If you look at the list in itself right now, this list has finite and changed up the way it was playing to the point where it's only at 8 non-trigger cards. Means less likely for you to be worrying about, you know, losing out on it. I think the fact of the matter is when the triggerless cards are higher than 8, the likelihood of you not having any triggers in your triggerless deck, in your trigger stack, in your security, become ridiculously high. And then it feels bad when you're not hitting them, and then when you smack into your opponent and they're having these triggers go off left and right, you feel like you're at a disadvantage because these triggers are so important. But if you look at it, there are so many restand triggers in this deck that it becomes very scary, right? This becomes that act triggers are becoming more and more viable, especially if your opponent doesn't remove it right off the bat or have great removal. That means you're blocking for better or for worse. Now, we do have the Gojo Nubara list. This does also have Megumin splashed in it. It's a very interesting hybrid list. You know, if you want to give it a try, it's not bad. I think you guys might have a little bit of consistency issues, but out of the day, I'm surprised Purple Lightning's at 3. But, you know, Gojo being Gojo is always a thing, right? Now, we do have this list. This is the Hashira list. So a lot of players are back and forth on how they want to build Hashira, but this one has a lot of good synergy across the board. I mean, being able to put bodies on the floor is the goal of the deck, right? And they also have the Hashira meetings that'll let them search for a piece, basically gain the AP back, and then do whatever they want the rest of the turn. So this is why you're starting to see maybe a little bit of total concentration breathing get removed. And this leads to being some great added synergy that a lot of players like to see. Now, taking a look here, another Hashira list as well. And this one does have a little bit of interesting text. They are on total consecration being at a full playset and then the Hashira meeting. So taking a look at this, at the end of the day, it looks really solid to me where this deck is going. And I think this is probably the second best deck in the format because the promos just added that extra layer in the Hashira deck that people weren't ready for. And I like that. I like the thought process that maybe this deck can be adapted, maybe changed up, you know, just a little bit of spice and it goes the long way, right? Now, again, here's the Tanjiro Nezuko list. As always, we kind of just see the better results. You know, this deck is going to do well because, again, there's not many untriggerables in the deck. If you notice that this one, you can take a look across the board, a whopping 6 triggers. Eight. You know, magic number where you just have these good cards, but there's only so many non-viable triggers because, again, triggers are magical in this game because we want to have them go off as much as possible. Now, here's another Tanjiro list. This one came from the backwoods of my home state. So they brought it from Phantasm Gaming, but not a bad list at all. I think this is pretty solid and a good representation of just people are willing to start adapting, right? Now, again, here's another Tanjiro list that we all want to kind of just get in this idea and understanding. They are playing the Giru that is 8 impact and then gets to choose 1 card on your opponent's front line, switch it to resting, draw a card. You know, a 5 cost draw, a 2 action draw card is not bad, especially if you get rid of a blocker that turn, right? So I think there's a lot of possibilities on how the deck is going to be built in the future, and I liked where it's going. Now we're getting into purple bleach. This is raidless, but it plays Renji, a little more higher count. And again, it's not bad because again, I think, to be honest with you, this Renji Abarai was slept on early, but started to seek its way in because now you have ways of just minusing 3000 DP something, and then you just, another raid can lead into removal. And I think being able to remove threats is becoming more and more viable and what you want to do constantly in this game. Now, here's another great bleach list, and this one has the winner Ichigo, but they also do have the big Ichigo here, the big starter deck Ichigo. And I think players are starting to adapt and learn. You know, you hit these mid-range style of decks can deal with aggro very comfortably at times, especially with the right triggers and everything like this. And again, look at the magic number of non-triggers in the deck. We're sitting at 8 non-triggers, and this is going to be very commonplace going forwards, I think, just to see if we can build the deck with at least the least amount of triggers we can, of non-triggers we can. And 8 seems to be the magic sweet spot. Now, taking a look at this one, this is the other Ichigo list. It does have some interesting takes, but again, this one is at probably the least amount of non-triggers, 5 right now. And that's pretty solid. You know, having tasty bread, gets a good 10 shows, and all the good stuff across the board, I think we lead into a good spot. Now, we do have Lancelot doing some shenanigans this set as well. I think this is pretty interesting as well. All hail Britannia, as long, you know, gains 1000 DP, allowing you to apply pressure, but choose one character in your front line and gains impact. And if you had Charles, you get to draw a card. But it's not really in there because you just want to have that multiple impact. So that means your big Lancelot becomes a bigger threat. You know, I also like that they are playing the Goldcaster, the, you know, her mech, the Caroline, or whatever her name is. Just being able to play her as an early game threat analysis. And what's very interesting is a lot of people adapt this to playing it like raidless bleach back in the day. They adapted it to a point where they're just slamming down the Lancelots without the raid skill, and they're not really caring because those double damage is above the raid and they get to apply pressure. And then, you know, the Cornelia's mech is just in there for a 4000 DP early game blocker, especially because if we double energy generate so quickly in this deck, it makes a lot of sense to just slam down a 4K, right? And just let you take up some damage because you need to start soaking up some damage or else you're going to lose in the long term, in my opinion. Now, again, similar thing. We are seeing the Lancelot Empire yet again. You know, this is from another event. And again, we're getting these Lancelots. Now, again, there's a Jeremiah list here with the Cornelia, but they also are playing Euphemia, the 2-action with the step and draw card. Giving 3 energy is not bad. It sets you up, and then you can just keep your energy low and just get stuff in the back that's set up just to be able to come up in later turns. Now, we do have our good friend Purple Bleach with, you know, Purple Bleach. Ha! Purple Code Gias. And again, this deck has been tried and true for a while now, and they have the least amount of non-triggers in the game. They only do 4 non-triggers, and the deck is very scary because of this, because they're always threatening your life, because the most likely you're not hitting 4 C's, 0 cost in that life. You're hitting something that's either adding a card to hand, adding, or, you know, drawing a card, restanding, playing a body. You know, all this stuff adds up and it becomes a very scary threat in its own right. Now, this one's playing a little bit more on the higher, no, they're kind of still the same thing. 8 non-triggers. So actually, no, they're at 8. So again, a lot of players, also Checkmate is a very interesting card because being able to give impact again to your Girins, just to be able to swing in for impact is sometimes a closer in itself, right? Or double impact. So especially with the blocker one, you give it to that one. If you can do this multiple times, to force them to block and they soak up 3 damage because your impact is checkmated, you know, 3 damage is nothing to scoff at sometimes. And that just puts your opponent at a weird clock, right? Now, again, again, Checkmate as well. Players are adapting, and I think Checkmate is a very underrated card and underused, but I think players are starting to adapt into it. Now, again, this guy, Roberto, did well. He got first place in the UA online box winner. He beat Yellow Tanjiro, Mirror Match, Kurapika, Purple Bleach, Green Lancelot at best of 3. So also playing Checkmate as well. I think Checkmate is something we need to start looking at as a card, and I think we're starting to wake up at how powerful a option this can be. Now, here's the purple hybrid list for the players that want to play Hunter x Hunter. I've seen this deck go off from time to time, just with Illumis and, you know, Uvogan. Just being able to apply the pressure it does is just scary for a lot of players, right? This guy is going to clear out most 5Ks and under. There's not a lot of cards in this game that can stop, you know, a 5K very comfortably without losing the trade, right? So taking this into account, that this leads into very scary territory, you know, this deck does have some legs. And again, Hunter x Hunter has shown its resilience to show up into a format that it just seemed like a lot of players just discarded. You know, this deck as well, again, you know, 4th place out of 13 players is nothing to scoff at. Only lost to Renji Rush, but handling Kento Namami, Purple Lelouch, and the Hashira decks is showing that, again, in a competitive setting, this deck does well. And then we do finally get our good friend Muzan. Muzan, a lot of players have been wondering how to build this. And again, the biggest drawback on this deck is its trigger lineup. So it does have one of the bigger weaknesses. If your opponent can just keep hitting you and you don't get any value, you know, lower 4, lower 6, Muzan, 1 cost, Muzan, you know, 2 costs are all triggerless cards. And this thing brings it up to a whopping 14 non-triggers. We saw that it worked early on in the game, but now we're seeing that it's going to be a little bit more challenging going forwards. But remember, guys, use Union Arena Tops to get your on Twitter or Instagram, and I'll be able to find you. So if you are doing that, let me know down in the comments. But really good job getting Muzan to show some representation. And then this one's another one with the Gyutaro. Gyutaro Daikai deck is showing up to be a very scary threat as well. If you look at it, they are at the same kind of magic number we want to be at, and that is 8 non-trigger cards. So looking at this right now, the list has very much evolved and be able to do a lot of crazy shenanigans, especially because the promos add in a layer that wasn't in there to begin with. The only loss was Blue Sukuna, and if you guys want, check up Joseph. Type in Joseph Ryder Anderson. Go on his Twitter or X, and you'll find him. And he will be able to give you a good write-up and synopsis of how the deck is supposed to be played and a good understanding. A lot of players like this kind of stuff, and it leads to being some good information, and he does a great job at it. And then finally, the Megumin list. I know that we haven't really talked about Megumin, but a good informational background on this. The Chimera Gardens going down to 3 and instantly going up to being like this. So this is what the true list will end up looking like, he told me, and I think this is pretty solid. Megumin Rush is nothing to scoff at. If you opened up correctly, your opponent's going to have a bad day. But what do you guys think of this video? Remember, say happy birthday down to me in the comments. Guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's get to 1,000 subscribers, shall we? Bye.